Hi, this is Liz, and welcome to my podcast, Spiritually Speaking with Liz. Today, we're joined by another amazing guest, and I'm going to jump straight in. You know what to do with all the likes, the subscribes, and the follows, so I won't bore you with that because I'm excited to start. So today, I'm introducing you to the fabulous Rose Cole. Rose is, I've got a long list here, and believe me, I had to cut it short because this is a woman of many, many talents. Rose is a visionary leader, a modern day medicine woman, and a world-renowned speaker. She co-authored a book alongside Deepak Chopra and Dr. Andrew Weil. She's a shamanic priestess, a popular guest featured on several US TV networks, and a preeminent mentor and spiritual guide who has helped thousands create thriving and awakened lives. Rose is also a minister and president of a 501c3 non-profit Beauty Way in Unity, whose mission is to raise money and awareness to protect the sacred lands and traditions of our world's earthkeepers and healers for future generations. Rose also founded the Sacred Oak Academy, which is one of the world's most in-depth training programs in universal shamanism and the home of miraculous transformations. The Sacred Oak Academy offers the Guided Energy Medicine Certification Program, and her aim is to train and certify people from all over the world in the core medicines of shamanism and quantum healing tools through her international certification, in the belief that as more people live with these abilities activated, the world awakens to a new consciousness. Rose, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Liz. It's really an honor and a joy to be here.
Thank you. Okay, I want to dive straight in and to where it all started for you, because it started at a very young age. So I'd like you to tell your story.
I would love to. Thank you. Well, when I was very young, under the age of 5, I remember being connected to the unseen world. And I didn't know that that was unusual because that's how I had always been. So I just had a real sense of peace and connected to something bigger than myself. I could feel what other people were feeling emotionally. I could speak to ancestors who had crossed over to the other side. And there was a story where my great grandfather, who I was very close with, he had passed over, and they didn't want to tell me because I was only 3 and they thought I wouldn't understand. So no one told me that he passed. But that night I went to sleep and I woke up in the morning and I said, "Oh, great grandpa Harry's gone." And everybody looked at me like, "How did she know?" And I said, "But it's okay. He said goodbye." And so I had many stories like this, and I would recite to my parents whole past lives in other countries, and I describe things in detail that I had never seen in this lifetime, and I would speak in other languages that I had no direct connection to in this lifetime. And there was also a story where my mom said that my teacher called home when I was in kindergarten and said, "Did you know that it was Rose's day in kindergarten for show and tell?" And here in the States, show and tell means that the child gets to bring something to share with the class. Like most kids will bring a toy or a doll. But I gave a presentation about life after death and about different realms of consciousness. And my mom was stunned because she didn't even know it was my day, and she didn't really know what to do with this or where I was getting this information. But this is what was near and dear to my heart. This is what was on my mind. But everything changed right before my 6th birthday, where I experienced some severe sexual trauma. And so during that time, out of a way of preservation, I shut down my seeing and my gifts and my abilities just to cope. And during that time, also, there was a change in my house, and both my mother and my stepfather were developing pretty severe drug and alcohol problems, hard drugs. And we were living in conditions that were not clean and suitable. There was a lot of neglect and abuse that was going on. And pretty soon after that, the Child Protective Services here in the States had to step in and remove my brother and I and put us into the foster care system. So as you can imagine, that was a lot of trauma and a very dark time. And I remember just being totally my umbilical cord to source, so to speak, was just severed. And I remember being 7 years old. That was the youngest age where I remember just being in so much pain that I just wished that I would die. And so I had a very dark period. And then I eventually was adopted by my aunt and her husband, and he was Native American. He was Apache. And so I had the great esteem and honor of getting to experience firsthand many Native American rites of passage and healing ceremonies. And I started to heal myself quantumly at a very fast pace. And I started to evolve my consciousness. And it was incredible. It was like I woke up, and I eventually became a holistic nutritionist. I kind of created a little name for myself here in the States. I was on television and had the honor of co-authoring with some pretty big names. And there was even like a television show in the works about my life. But all of the shamanic healing I kept in the closet. At the time, it wasn't kind of in vogue like it is today. And I just thought that the public wasn't ready for it. They would see it as too woo-woo. And so I didn't dare to tell anyone about how I really healed myself. I had the honor of getting to meet Marianne Williamson. She's the best-selling spiritual author. And I explained to her kind of my strife and the place that I was in. And she said, well, you are a high priestess and you will know exactly what to do. And I had this transmission from her in that moment. And I knew it was time to kind of let myself out of the closet and really share authentically who I was, how I healed myself. I was leading healing groups with people from all over the world quantumly. So people were shifting really, really fast and elevating their consciousness and elevating beyond the pain and the suffering and the trauma that they'd been through in their life. And then I had people saying, can you train me on what you're doing? How do you get these kind of results with people? And I just thought, there's no way I could train somebody in this. It's an intuitive process. And then I was gifted and downloaded with the whole system of how I do what I do. And so I created a school called the Sacred Oak Academy. And now I have the honor and privilege of training people from all over the world in quantum healing tools and how to elevate their consciousness. So that's a little bit about who I am. And today I live in the mountains outside of San Diego. I have a little daughter who just turned 12 named Violet, and I love what I do.
Oh, that's fabulous. I've got so many questions I want to ask you. So I'll rein myself in. So firstly, you talk about quantum healing. Can you explain to people what that is, what that means?
Yes. So here where we have like Newtonian physics, right? 1 + 1 = 2. And we have things like gravity, and we have these universal laws. What's so interesting about shamanism and working with quantum healing tools is that there's actually places that you can go beyond Newtonian physics, where a lot of times modern science they're just beginning to scratch the surface to understand this, where true miracles and supernatural experiences can occur. I've had the honor of experiencing a lot of these things firsthand. So now all of a sudden, when you go into these healing spaces, instead of 1 + 1 = 2, it can equal 10 or 100. So what I mean by that is you can go to, let's say, traditional therapy. And I've done traditional therapy, and it can be wonderful. But in one shamanic ceremony, healing ceremony, it can be like 5 years of therapy, the equivalent. It can be like 10 years of therapy, where you literally jump timelines, where you're one person and you come out and you've integrated and changed some things within yourself and your psyche on so many different levels that it's exponential. And that's what I love about this type of healing work, and why I'm so passionate about it, is that the healing and growth is exponential. It is quantum. So that's what I mean by quantum healing work.
Okay. And so your aunt's husband, so your uncle, I suppose, in all intents and purposes, did he teach you a lot of this? Or so you had like the rites of passage. Did he teach you about time not being linear, that type of thing? Or was this did you just pick this up from being around him rather than him sort of like sitting down and saying, right, Rose, I'm going to teach you this? Is it
Yeah.
just what you picked up from him with the rites and then with your downloads as well?
That's a very interesting question. So, and I consider him to be my father. He raised me as a father. And so in our path, there is no like, stepfather or, and so I do consider him to be my father figure. And so shamanism is a very interesting thing. So, we're used to reading in a book, right? And the mind, and here, in the in Western learning, we think about learning through our mind.
Mm-hmm.
Shamanism is about direct revelation, direct experience. So I learned from being in his presence and from being in ceremony and receiving it as direct revelation in ceremony. He also, of course, imparted a lot of wisdom to me. But I'll tell you, the biggest thing that I learned from him was watching his own journey. Because when we were very small kids, he actually was quite volatile and very overly emotional. And he even would like hit us. He wasn't a very grounded person, and he wasn't connected to his spiritual path when we were very small. And then we lost his daughter, who was like a sister to me, in a car accident. And it facilitated a profound awakening for him and reconnecting to his spiritual roots. And he ended up becoming a pillar of the community and teaching about native ways and traveling all over the world to speak about these ways. And I watched the trajectory of his healing and evolution.
Wow.
And he elevated himself at such a pace that was so profound that at the end of his life, he actually entered into a state of consciousness called sainthood. He actually was a living saint. At one point, he was even brought together with the Dalai Lama to meet the Dalai Lama. And so people gathered from all over the country at his bedside when he passed to just be in his presence and say their gratitude for what he had taught him. And so it's interesting. Shamanism, you learn in a different way. You learn from being in ceremony. So that's why true shamanism, you can't learn from a YouTube video. You can't learn it in a book. It's not written down. It's taught through oral tradition, and it's taught through direct experience. Yeah. But then I've gone on from there. I've studied with several other different shamanic paths and different medicine carriers and medicine people, and was initiated as a ordained minister in another shamanic path, and then created the shamanic lineage that we lead through the School of the Sacred Oak Academy.
So are there like hundreds of lineages
around the world? Shamanic lineage, thousands, tens of thousands. If you think about it, every single indigenous culture had their own shamanic path and lineage. Mm-hmm. So even in Europe and England, all over Europe were tribes. Mm-hmm. Before colonization, and the Romans came in and told them, okay, everyone's going to be this religion, and we're taking all of your shamanic tools away, and you can't speak your language. They all had deep shamanic paths. So every indigenous path. So if you go to the Aboriginals in Australia, if you go to all over Africa, they still do have profound shamanic lineage, all over South America, Canada, all over the world. And so now we kind of consider ourselves to be sort of like, I think of us as like cultural refugees, right? A lot of us are, disconnected from our roots. There's been a gap because of colonization. And now we're in the process, I believe, of reclaiming all of these sacred ways of healing and living. And so that's why there's been a resurgence in that all over the globe.
That's amazing. Now, the thing that seems to run through all areas of shamanism, and please excuse my ignorance if this isn't correct, but there always seems to be the drumming element.
I would say most, I can't say all, but most different shamanic paths have some kind of sound healing or a vibrational element to their healing method. Mm-hmm. And so I wish I would have had my drum here to show you, but if it wasn't a drum, it was a rattle. And if it wasn't a rattle, it was a seed pod that you could shake, and you're making a rhythmic sound. And so why do they do this? Why can you go to South America and all over, Asia and Africa, and they're doing the same thing, just different instruments? Well, they're making a rhythmic sound. And when you make this rhythmic sound, the vibration of it is doing a lot of different things. One of which is to clear the field, right? So they're using this to clear your energy field, to clear the space. And also it's taking you into different brain states. People don't realize that it's actually taking you into what's called the theta brainwave state. We call this in our path, I've coined this term, the shamanic state. And when you go into this altered state, you're connecting with the consciousness of the world. You're connecting with infinite consciousness. Everything that has been known or could be known is there to access. What an amazing tool, right? So this is where you hear of monks or saints or spiritual people going into caves and drumming or singing or rattling, and then coming out with this incredible wisdom that's changed the world, right? This has been happening since the beginning of time. Well, they're going into this state, and they're accessing this state of consciousness, the quantum field, so to speak, right? This shamanic state, and then downloaded to them is being given wisdom, right? And perspective. It helps to also regulate your nervous system. It takes you into your higher self. So one of the big things that we do at our school is I'm teaching people how to enter into this state, how to work with this state, how to take their clients into this state. So that's part of what we're doing, because it's incredibly healing. You can have a problem that you can't figure out with your mind, seems just insurmountable. You can't figure out a solution. And then there's all these different practices of entering into this state, and all of a sudden, pops into your mind the perfect solution that was right under your nose that you couldn't see before. So this is what people have been doing since the beginning of time.
I can remember the first time I experienced drumming, and I didn't really want to go. It was just a friend was going like, "Oh, come along," and I was like, "It's not really my thing," but okay. So I went. I was open, and I was blown away by the fact that as soon as that drum started, so it started off a slow rhythm and then slowly built up, and then towards the end back down again. And the experience I had was so profound, so palpable. It was just, I couldn't understand what that drum had done to me, if that makes sense, because as soon as I heard it, I was, well, now I know what it is, but I didn't. I was gone. I was out of Liz, and I was free. This freedom, this sense of freedom that came with it, and it was just incredible. And the lady running the circle said that it's likened to the heartbeat of your mother. So it's the connection to the heartbeat of your mother, the heartbeat to all of our mothers, Mother Earth. And I just found it absolutely profound.
Yes, that was the first sound that we heard, was the heartbeat of our mother.
Yeah.
And so it's very comforting and it's very healing. And yes, the heartbeat of we have the Schumann resonance, the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And so that's why it's so important for us to return to the heartbeat. The heartbeat of the mother is incredibly soothing and comforting for our nervous system, for our body, our being, and taking us into our higher self. And I like to say transported, right? Like transport.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes you can actually see visions and our different gifts and abilities come online. Yeah. So in our path, we can use a rattle or a drum, but we also have other techniques and ways to go into the shamanic state that don't require any instruments. And so I find that's what universal shamanism is. What I discovered from studying all of these different shamanic paths is that every shamanic path has three things in common. They just have different tools to get there. One, they know how to work with energy, right? They know how to transmute energy. They can move energy out that's not wanted, bring in energy that is wanted. They just have different tools for doing that. They can sense energy, they can read energy. Number two, they know how to work with the shamanic state. They know how to access it and work with it for infinite possibilities, to create miracles. Literally, you can have somebody that has a tumor use vibrational medicine, go into the shamanic state, and literally afterwards not have a tumor, like medically verified. We've had it happen 3 times in our path that a tumor was medically verified. And after one session with the energy work that we did, it was not there anymore, and stumped all the doctors who were just about to do surgery. It's not there anymore.
How fantastic.
Isn't that incredible?
Amazing.
And then there's also, and then they also know how to speak to spirit. They know how they have different tools and ways of communicating and speaking to and having a two-way conversation with the divine, with spirit. And so, yeah, we've been doing this there's evidence of shamanism being practiced 100,000 years ago.
Wow.
This is the oldest spiritual and healing path in existence here on this planet.
That's mind-boggling, isn't it? That length of time.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's like we were saying earlier, there's like a resurgence of it now, isn't it? It seems that everywhere you go, there's drumming circles. It's becoming more and more commonplace, really. Where people wouldn't have known what a shaman was, or what shamanism even was, where now it's something that you're hearing more and more. And I mean, obviously that can go 2 ways, can't it? I think there's the positivity that people have, the awareness that people understand about the quantum field, that people understand that how we should respect the earth, about what we can do and how we can be in ourselves, I think. But then there's also the dangerous side of people saying that they can do these healings, and when they've done a 1-day workshop on YouTube or something.
Yes, that is that is the up and the downside of this. How incredible that we get to reclaim these schools, and we have to, be discerning who we go to. And that's why in our path, we don't consider ourselves to be healers. We don't train ourselves as healers. We don't train ourselves to become a shaman. We believe that we are reconnecting you with your own healing ability, that you are healing yourself. We would never want to take your power away and say, we are healing you. And do not call ourselves shaman. There's actually a very specific lineage that comes from the Tungus tribe in Siberia. And those are the only true people that can call themselves a shaman. You have to actually have been initiated and born into that tribe. So everyone else around the world, and if you talk to indigenous people, they don't call themselves a shaman. If you're even from North America, the Native Americans, they don't call themselves shaman. They would never call themselves that. Or South America, all over the Amazon, they don't call themselves a shaman. They have different names that they call themselves, and they might call themselves a medicine man, or they might be called a medicine man or a medicine woman. But so anyway, that word is kind of thrown around a lot. People say, but if somebody calls themselves a shaman, I always that piques my interest. That makes me curious a little bit. So we don't train people to become shaman. We're training people in the shamanic arts, the shamanic healing arts, and they become a shamanic practitioner. They become certified in guided energy medicine, but we're not becoming shaman, because we want to have honor and great reverence for that particular lineage that's coming from Siberia. So that's one of the things I love educating people on.
Absolutely. So while we're talking about education, would you like to tell us a little bit about the Sacred Oak Academy?
Sure. What would I like to say about that? Well, we have a year-long certification. We have students all over the world because we're able to teach virtually. And then we have people, if they're able to, come out to the States for the in-person intensives. And we're really teaching the core principles of universal shamanism. So we're teaching people how to work with energy, how to do energy alignment sessions, how to speak with the divine and have a two-way conversation with spirit. We're teaching mediumship, because that is part of every single shamanic path around the world. And we're also teaching quantum healing tools about how to work with beliefs. And we kind of think of ourselves as coders, like for computers.
Yeah, I like that.
Because we're helping to recode, take out, we're helping, replace old, outdated coding that we've inherited from our ancestors that's no longer needed or necessary for this time, and upgrading it. And so we we're upgrading our operating system, so to speak. So I teach other smaller classes too, for people that aren't ready to go on to like the year-long program. I teach programs, smaller classes and workshops for upgrading our consciousness. That's what I'm passionate about, because I know that when more of us reach that critical mass, as we keep upgrading our own personal consciousness, we change the collective consciousness here on this planet. And that really, really, that excites me.
Well, I totally understand why. So let's shift to Rose personally. What do you do on a daily basis? What are your non-negotiables? So Violet would know to write, okay, can't disturb mommy because she is whatever. So what would you say daily? What do you have to do, or not have to do, but what brings you pleasure and what keeps you centered?
Yes, my daughter would be able to say this very clearly because she does know those times. Well, in our path, and every single path has different ways of doing this. We have our own practices we use every day for centering, grounding, meditation, and clearing our field, disconnecting cords, connecting to the divine, anchoring ourselves. And it is a non-negotiable for me. As many people watching this probably know, the more awake and aware we become more sensitive. We just do. And we're not becoming crazy. We are more sensitive. We're more sensitive to energy. When I don't do my daily clearing, centering practices and meditation, I feel it. I feel everything out in the collective. I'm like a sponge. I'm mopping it up, and that's how I was when I was a child. I was mopping up everybody else's feelings and emotions. I didn't know what was mine and what was other people's. So it's really important. I'm really big into teaching energy hygiene.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm not perfect with it. There's days I forget or I don't do it. And then I go, oh, now I can feel it. Now I'm paying the price.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the other thing is spending time in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And just before this, I went on a long nature walk and just took in and bathed myself in the forest.
Lovely.
Breathed, did my breathing, and to really regulate myself, to really come into my higher self, because we're around so much technology and screens, and it's really hard to hear the messages of the divine and be that channel, that hollow bone, if we're not connecting to nature. Nature is the motherboard of all creation. And when we become disconnected from it, we get wonky, we get neurotic, we get depressed, we get anxious. And so here we have something that's free, that's available to almost everyone. Within steps of our door, we can find a patch of grass, we can find a tree to sit under, we can find some soil to put our hands in and anchor into Mother Earth. And so I notice for myself, though, when I don't do that, things get weird. So reconnecting with nature.
That's the common thread. Everybody I ask, everybody says about nature, being in nature. And it is, because it's just, like you say, it's that connection. You breathe fuller, you let go. It's just a cure-all, really, isn't it?
Yeah, even looking at green plants will regulate your system and get us out of anxiety. There's lots of studies. In Japan, they call it forest bathing.
Yeah.
So even if nothing else, if you're feeling overwhelmed and depleted, like for myself, I know, okay, I'm going to get a towel or blanket and just go sit outside and make myself sit still, cultivate presence, and have solitude. Every spiritual master that I know, that I look up to, they all say the same thing, that we need solitude, that we need some kind of meditative practice, and that we need nature. That's what the common thread seems to be across the board.
That was my next question. I was going to say, what would you, as Rose now, to that younger Rose who was, well, there's still some aspects of it you can answer. So to that younger Rose before Marianne Williamson, who didn't want to fully come out of the closet, so to speak, what would you say to her now?
I love this question. I wish I could go back and whisper to myself and say, stop caring about what everyone thinks. Take yourself out of the rat race, opt out. I wish I would have done it years earlier, where I just, taken myself out. And I wish I would have known how simple it was to just stop caring about the likes on the social media or trying to prove anything to anyone, and to not make any of these things my identity. That my identity is not my bank account or how many clients I have or how many likes I have on social media. And I wish I could tell myself, oh, I'm getting emotional even thinking about it, that true success is based on your sense of peace. And your sense of peace, for most people, I find, is directly related to how much presence you've cultivated, how much presence you can cultivate. And that seems to be the key. And I wish I would have known that key sooner. It would have been a lot less struggle and strife. And, it was all part of the journey. And
there's lessons along the way, isn't there? And I think, but we are conditioned to care what people think. There are very few people from a young age that aren't conditioned to that.
It's true.
And like you say, with social media, that has, looking at the likes, looking at the views, that's an easy spiral to go down if you let yourself.
What we look at on the outside. I used to do so much to, dyeing my hair and painting my nails. It was obsessive. And I was a professional model when I was younger, which just compounded it. And it was just so many women and men. Your external, the way you look externally is your identity. And when you peel that away, it's so incredibly freeing. And then I went through the period of like, oh, well, I need to make money. I need to prove that I'm successful. I need to, it's what kind of car I drive or what kind of house I live in, all those external things that it's so freeing when you let all of that go, when you just take yourself out of the whole rat race. In hindsight, it's like, wow, it's such mania. And there's so much peace when you just opt out.
Yeah, definitely. But everybody's on the treadmill, aren't they? On the treadmill of life. So how can you put that across to Violet? How can you encourage her, or what do you do to encourage her? And for any other parents listening, to encourage the child to be themselves, to not get pulled into social media. What tips could you give there?
Oh, I love that question too. So she sees me. So mostly I model it for her, right? And it's funny because she's a little preteen now. So, when I tell her things, of course, she like rolls her eyes. I try to tell her directly. If I try to teach her, it's like, oh, mommy. And she says, oh, another teaching moment, gives her quotes. And it's still getting in. So she sees me in the morning, wake up right when the sun's coming out, and I close my eyes and I watch the sun rise. And people have been doing this since the beginning of time, watching the sunrise, watching the sunset. There's something very healing about the nervous system and letting ourselves know there will always be a dawning of a new day. And there will always be there's the completion of the day. There's natural cycles that we have that are mirrored to us from nature. And so she sees me doing this. And the other day she opens up the front door and it's early in the morning and she leaves the door open. I said, what are you doing? And she's standing out there in the sun. She goes, I'm greeting the sun. And I thought, oh my gosh, it actually went in, she chose to do that. I didn't ask her to come out and do it with me. She went and did that. And so they are listening and they're watching. So I teach her how to clear her energy, and the days that she doesn't clear her energy, she is a little empath and she soaks it up and she gets all emotional in the evenings. And I say, have you cleared your energy? No, I haven't. This is my energy, mommy. And I said, oh, is it? I said, well, just do it with me. No. And then she does a clearing, and then she feels better. And then she looks at me and goes, okay, maybe we're right this time. But clearing our energy, having our self-care, simple rituals like watching the sunrise, watching the sunset, going out on a nature walk. All of this is getting in. I know that it impacts her. And she goes to a school, a Waldorf school, which is a school that it's like a holistic school system.
Wow.
They have them all over the world, every major city of the world, is originally from Germany. It's 150 years old. They don't have technology. They have the kids have little to no technology. So she sees other children addicted to their cell phone. Mm-hmm. And she can be present with people because she's not on an iPad. She doesn't have a cell phone yet. And she said, Mommy, it turns people into zombies.
Wow.
I said, it does,
That's
right?
a 12-year-old.
Yeah, well, and she was saying this at 9, 10. We'd go to a family function and she'd see her cousins on Thanksgiving Day, and nobody's talking to each other, and they're like this on their phone. And they have this look on their face like they're just blank. And she looked around the room and she goes, they're zombies. And I said, yeah, that's what it does. It's addictive. She can see that it's addictive. And then so she wants to make other choices. So I think a lot of it is just modeling it for them. We're not on our cell phone all the time. We're going out into nature. We're connecting with the simple rituals and syncing ourselves to the rhythms of Mother Earth. And I do think it impacts them.
Yeah, I think, but that's amazing, the school. That sounds incredible.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in it. I highly recommend looking into it. It's again called Waldorf Education, and Rudolf Steiner, he was the man who created it. And he also created biodynamic farming and a whole branch of holistic medicine. He was really a world thought leader, way ahead of his time. And so they have all these rituals that they bring into the class. If I may share one, I just thought of one.
Yeah.
So here we are in fall, right? We know winter is coming, and the natural rhythms of our life can mirror nature, right? So when we go into that winter portal, some called the death portal, we're kind of going into that chrysalis. So here we are in fall. We're preparing ourselves. We're going into we're harvesting all of the beauty that we had for this year and resourcing ourselves to get ready to go into that winter portal. So at her school, all of the Waldorf schools around the world have this beautiful ceremony where they reenact Archangel Michael slaying his inner dragon and being elevated to the first angel next to God. So they have all these songs that they sing about conquering over your inner fears and remembering your inner light that you have within. And they bake a giant dragon made out of bread, and then they eat the bread. So it's really, and they're creating this beautiful ceremony out of it. So that's really showing us and emanating like you can conquer over your inner demons, your inner fears, your inner dragons. And they have all these beautiful verses and songs that are teaching them about, again, remembering that inner light and preparing themselves for going into this dark winter months. So, for thousands of years, we had these cherished, beautiful rituals and ceremonies that we can use to help us through these big transitions in life, to help us. Humans aren't very good at transitions. We don't like transitions, even from one season to the next, or from, being a child into an adolescent, or entering into the season of being a crone in our life, these different life stages, or being married and then being divorced. We have a hard time with this. But if we bring in ceremony and song and ritual, and again, meeting around the fire with community, these are the things for thousands of years that we've done to assist us through these transitions of life that help to bring more grace and ease and laughter and joy and help to assist us.
So each month you offer a free virtual drumming circle, don't you?
We do. We have it's just a free humanitarian prayer circle that we offer to the public, a chance to get together to, again, hear the beat of the drum, meet in community, join in prayer. We have people from all backgrounds, all beliefs that join us. Yes.
I'll put details of that in the show notes, because obviously you're Pacific time, aren't you? So we're 8 hours different. So I have to do it normally the day after,
Yes.
But it's still as potent, it's still the.
Yes, it just depends on where you are on the globe. We moved it back a little bit. I know it's a little late for you guys there. It's like in the middle of the night, but you can watch the replay. We put it on our YouTube channel, and the link is always the same. It's just rosecole.com/circle. So it's ROSECOLE.com/circle. And then you can see we try to get the next prayer circle registration up about 2 weeks beforehand, and you're welcome to register and share with others. And we do energy work. You get to experience the type of energy work that we use in this path. So, it's amazing the feedback that we get as people come feeling overwhelmed or frazzled by life. And then by the end, just a short hour and 15 minutes later, they feel calm, dropped in, grounded, connected. Anxiety has vanished, depression has uplifted. How can you do that in an hour and 15 minutes? Well, that's the power of getting to come into the shamanic field, and why we've been meeting with the drum in community for so many years, so many centuries.
It's definitely worth attending, guys, if you want to do that. So before we close, your team told me that you had a free gift for our listeners and viewers.
Yes, we have an e-guide that talks about the different 9 shamanic gifts. And many people don't even realize that they have these gifts, or that they are gifts. And there may be some on there that you've never even heard of before. And there's a description of them and a little prayer that you can do to activate these abilities within yourself. So you can just go to rosecole.com/free gift, and you can download this guide. And so again, it's ROSECOLE.com/free gift.
And again, I'll put all that in the show notes.
Rose,
thank you so much. I feel like I've only just started and I could go on for hours, but I know we can't. But thank you so much for joining me. I've absolutely loved having you on. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity, and also spreading your beautiful wisdom and making this available to so many people around the globe. So thank you for the sacred work that you're doing.
Oh, welcome. Thank you. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'll be back again soon with another very exciting guest. And I'll see you then. Take care. Bye.